fields grow anew with the spring of life. In this sheath of truth will I wrap myself tight. The landscape it goes for miles. The myths of old, they breathe in me life.
Okay, Lindstrom, great question. You're asking specifically about the book The Wise Wound. I've had that book, I've read it, I can't tell you how many times, along with many other leading feminists in the, like Merlin Stone and Monica Shu. We'll be referring a lot to books of that kind, specifically because they do go into this nursery period that stretches back a long way. 25,000 years, 35,000 years is put on it. This is the goddess tradition that you're talking about. I've dealt with it in my program, the Divination in the Goddess Tradition, which is free. You can watch it on unslaved.com. Talking about this healthy, sane perspective. The great cults of the past, which, because we're living under a patriarchy, the information has been suppressed about it. It's on the shelves. Nobody wants to talk about the matriarchies, and even if they do, they're hazy about what went on. So in the Female Illuminati, we're going to go into that, about what went on, and to show you that this cult, this tradition is a better word, which played such a big role, in the ancient world, even in cultures like the Sumerians and Babylonians, and certainly the Egyptians, of course, but also the Irish, and how eventually it started to decline around about 500 years BC specifically, but the damage started to be done before that, 1600 BC, 1600 years BC, when God's talking to Abraham, and there's a rise of the patriarchy, leading up to almost what could be considered one of the first dark ages, later on, about 500 BC. But this tradition goes far back. And so when they put even dates on it, like 35,000 years BC, that's almost a laugh. That's only because the wooden statues of the goddess, well, they decay, don't they? So only the stone ones are left. So they date the stone ones from about 35,000 years BC. But what about all the wooden ones that take it back hundreds of thousands of years? They rot and they disappear, and the patriarchy is very happy about that, because now you don't have to acknowledge that this thing is antique. And so if there is, I said this from the start, I've said this in the Atlantis book and in that program I just mentioned, my God, if there is anything left in our culture that is positive, it is the last of the remnants of that tradition. There's not much of it, but it does exist. Our concepts of time, the more positive ones, certain motifs in architecture, a lot of herbalism, a lot of agriculture, and even some of the more religious, the purer religious archetypes, come from that. But you also mentioned in your question cleverly about the unconscious, that it's all in us already, latent. Yeah, it is, and that's part of the solution to the other pestilence that I'll be dealing with in the Female Illuminati. What's the point of pointing out all the problems if there's no solution? The fact that we have a racial memory, the fact that whatever happened in the past, as Freud said, is never lost or forgotten, is big. That's a big thing. That's huge, because otherwise what are we going to do? We can't go back in time. There's no time machines. But you can bring the past to the present. You can get wild again. And you've got nature on the outside as well. So there's an internal memory of what was, buried deeply. One has to connect with it in a holistic way, not some new age spinner rack technique. One has to set out on that idiosyncratic journey to do that. And one has nature as it was and always will be to help you along the way. Because it's eternal. It can pick up the story at any minute. So the solutions are closer than we think. It's only we that are far away. But talking of divine feminine, it's nice, these are nice words. But since we've grown up in the patriarchy, and as I said, it started after this Abraham bit, So it's had it's very late in the day, historically speaking, but it's had its time to work on us. So we don't even know what femininity is anymore. This is what you got to understand. We don't even know what masculinity is. We're using these terms as if that nothing's happened to change. My work is trying to show people that you haven't the faintest idea what masculinity and femininity is. They're both malignant versions. They're both aberrant. And looking into the eyes of other people isn't going to make it any better. Everyone's got the infection. Everything we know about masculinity is based on a malignant femininity. Everything we know about femininity is based on a malignant masculinity. You only got to look to mum and dad to know that what I'm saying is absolutely true. If their mum and dad even was together when you grew up. So you have to dig down, don't you? You can't buy this, you can't install it, you can't read it in some Oprah Winfrey spinner rack. They're nowhere. Psychology's at the door. In 10 years you won't even be hearing of Freud and Jung. The work is already happening. The work of denigrating these people, shoving their work onto the shelf is already underway. I don't know if you know this. And in 10 years these names won't even be heard. Anyone who actually talks about the real psychology of man, they're being wiped out. But what these men asked us to do is basically go within. You've got to do the psychology, do the homework. Because you can't fix anything in society without going eventually into the psychology of it. And all that means in simple language is you have to go within to find the roots of these things and not wait for somebody to write about it or somebody to draw a map. We have to do the work ourselves right away. This is why my message to the world is so disliked by a vast majority of people within this movement and without of it. Any talk of trying to do inner homework or psychological... No, we'd rather have some other speaker get up there and tell us to wave some banners and get out there and do some political action. Get all together, oneness. So, you've got to have the trust to know that archetype of the divine masculine, the divine feminine, is an eternal thing that doesn't change, but we have to sing the right song. To contact it again is a story unto itself. It can be done, but it's a kind of hieros gammas of its own. And nature is the way short. And yes, you will have to face the shadow. But I've gone into what the shadow is. That's another vastly misinterpreted concept. What people are running around calling the personal shadow is really the result of the repressions that society forces upon us, starting with the parents. And that's the superego. So the shadow is really the shadow of a superego, not the ego itself. And this is conceded by the neo-Freudians. Anna Freud, Freud's daughter, was onto this big time. Many psychologists even before that were, but they really nailed it, where they knew that the broken thing is society itself. Because of its inherent collectivism, because of its inherent suppression of individuality, because of the nonsense that the parents are involved in, then bringing up the child in a most despicable way. Under the name of love, though. All of that, you see. And then, as I say, you can't even then start talking about other more subtle, and you only need to look at our society to see all of the perversions and wrong-headedness and the fiasco that happens in schools and all the rest of it, to know that this is perfectly true. That's why they don't want you to know about these people, because to read them is an indictment of our age, first and foremost. If you read these people, they were predicting, they were telling you what was going to happen, so all of those guys got to go. All the philosophers, all the people who in a different generation warned about the headaches today, we can't be telling the world about them because it's going to look so bad, because anyone then won't accept what's going on, because they'll say, how come at the time of Voltaire, Tennyson was doing it, Nietzsche was doing it, Crowley was doing it, and there's even earlier people warning, Goethe warned in the 1700s about everything you see today. Do you realize that in academic circles, what havoc that makes to have those prophets who warned about the declination, the moral declination and all the rest of it? Julius Evola, so many others I could mention, so many prophets warned about this. We can't let society know that they existed and warned, and then things have still turned out this way. It's an obscenity. You've got to hope that nobody knows about that, and people just then accept what's around them, not really thinking of any of it as that warped or that bad. So the first move when you start studying these subjects is individuation. I've always said that the work that I do, even though there's a lot of technical stuff there, and we're talking about history and we're looking into details, that's holy work. Because it's not just about facts and figures and information for the mind. This is holy work. All of it is to support the individual, to know what the enemy is, what's wrong with the mechanics of society. All of that assists you in individuating and clearing away the debris so that you can awaken these other archetypes. And stepping out of city life and the worst obscenities of city life, is also going to be highly recommended. But the work that we're doing now with the female Illuminati is going to really radically introduce you to what has been going on. Because they say, even though the patriarchy is historically young, it has had 2,000 years, 3,000 years to do its work. So there's a lot of digging needs to be done to clear away all of the pestilence and the lies that they have told us, especially about this ancestral nursery period and the true goddess tradition.
Why all this pain? Why all of this